absolutely surprised.
My boys are up and ready to go, so I'm ready.
Good morning. Today is Tuesday, May 26, 2015, 8:30 a.m. Hope you all had a wonderful holiday weekend. We will call this meeting of Legislative and Human Resources Committee to order. First thing on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the committee this morning? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the second item on the agenda, approval of the minutes from our April 28, 2015 meeting.
Madam Chair, I'll move the minutes from April 28th.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Bonk.
I'll support.
Second from Commissioner Antor. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, next up on the agenda is a legislative update from Public Affairs Associates, and we have with us this morning, as always, Becky Beckler. Good morning, Becky. Great to see you.
Great, nice to be here. Happy Tuesday. The good news is that legislative leaders and the governor were able to reach a target agreement. The funding level spends $9.9 billion on general fund. So now it leaves the conference committees with the ability to begin to meet and resolve the final issues that in their specific budget. The framework for this agreement is unusual in the fact that it does leave a large number of items to be resolved by conference committees. This is something very unusual, and past legislative leaders have gone about making almost all of the decisions, which is somewhat frustrating to members of the Appropriations Committee. So this year they'll have an opportunity to really put their fingerprints on their each individual legislative budget. So they will. The goal is to have those done by June 1st. That's a pretty tight goal when you have the Mackinac Policy Conference later this week, which will take them out of session from Wednesday to Friday. However, they have scheduled session days next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, to allow for the completion of the state's budget. Some of the key items that are included in this budget, first is an agreement by the governor and the legislative leaders to put $400 million of general fund revenue into roads. This is equivalent to what if Proposal 1 had passed, the first year would have allowed for $400 million. So they're essentially coming up with the same amount of money that Proposal 1 would have garnered that first year, with the idea that they will look for a long-term solution over the summer. They have scheduled summer session days. Both leaders have made a commitment that they will use that time to come up with a long-term solution, but in the short term, they put $400 million. That's an increase. The governor had proposed $139 million in the budget, transportation budget, and both the Senate and the House approved it to ensure federal matching funds. So this will go above and beyond that. Also part of the agreement is university will receive a 1.5% increase. However, they are limited to 2.8 tuition increase in order to receive that much money to 1.5% increase. The film credit, which has been under fire from the governor's recommendation at $50 million, will be cut to $25 million. It was at $38 million this year after the governor's executive order reducing the budget. So it will be at $25 million, with the idea that it's certainly up for further conversation this summer when they talk about a long-term funding solution for roads. The dispute over revenue sharing as far as municipalities, which started in the House, will be resolved, that no municipality will receive any cuts to revenue sharing, so that's good news for Kent County. There's also going to be a $25 million cut to the Talent and Development Department. This is the department that houses the Pure Michigan campaign, so is there some concern that that Pure Michigan efforts will be reduced under this target agreement. Also, the target agreement decreases the human services budget by $25 million. This is concerning the Senate. It's $20 million less than the Senate had passed and $26 million less than the House had passed. This isn't based on caseloads. It will be a reduction in programs. So that's something we're going to need to watch very closely. The agreement also includes $95 million in the Budget Stabilization Fund. This is something that's been a priority for the governor and will continue to be. One of the unresolved issues, which is a large issue, is what will happen with K-12 spending and the formula in which they use to disperse those funds. That will be left to the conferees. What also is unknown is what there's $100 million for at-risk students and $75 million for distressed schools. Those are items that are also left to the conference committees to resolve. The leaders have indicated that roads and education are their priorities, and there will be new money for education. However, they have left a lot of the details to the conferees. This is also one of the target agreements which they actually would not release the details of the agreement. It has been leaked out, but some of the details that we typically get have been kept private. So that's the issues with the budget. We'll continue to update it with you as we know more information. Again, because of the agreement which allows the conferees a lot of flexibility, some of the details in each individual budget are not going to be known until those conferees begin to meet, which could be as early as this week. I know work groups are beginning to formulate between the leaders to have conversations about them. So as we get information on the details, we'll provide them to you. Another bit of good news is legislation that we're watching is specific to the county is the Senate Transportation Committee on Thursday morning unanimously approved our legislation which will enable the county to begin to regionalize the airport. It is on the Senate floor, which we're hoping that it will be final approval, if not this week, early next week, with immediate effect, and then it will go to the governor for his signature. So that is very good news. We're not having any problems with the movement of that legislation. We have strong support in the Senate, so I'll keep you posted on that issue. As you know, the Senate had passed very quickly legislation eliminating prevailing wage, and the House this last week passed similar legislation, which would prevent local units of government from having local wage and benefit and ordinances. It also prohibits any type of minimum wage ordinances, dealing with work stoppage and pay and time leave. It's a very comprehensive ban on local governments. That did pass the House. We don't know the future of it in the Senate, but that was another major issue that the House did move this last week. And in the Senate, they moved a major package dealing with teacher evaluation. It's something that the legislature had as a priority last session. However, they were unable to resolve issues between the House and the Senate. This bill did pass the Senate and moves on to the House. We believe that the House will make it a priority as well, but whether they're able to do that before late June or early fall is still unknown. We have good news on the jobless rate. It's at 5.4%. It's the 20th consecutive month where our jobless rate has declined, and it's also the first time in 15 years where we've matched the national average. So this is also seen as good news to the state of Michigan. Those are the major issues that are happening in Lansing. I would be happy to answer any questions or get any additional information on some of the issues of importance to you.
All right, thank you, Becky. Questions this morning? Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Becky, back to roads again. What do you hear as Plan B or the options for Plan B on the roads since they're in desperate need of repair?
Absolutely.
Upgrade?
The legislature was trying to be very careful not to come up with a Plan B until the voters were able to vote on the proposal, and that was soundly defeated. There are significant bills that have been passed, all the way from the proposal that Speaker Bolger had introduced late last session. That has been reintroduced. This House came together and put together, I think it was early last week, their road proposal, which has come under considerable fire. It eliminates the earned income tax credit. It goes after significant restricted funds, which some wonder if they're even able to capture those when it comes to tobacco settlement and casino compacts. It also captures future funds that I'm not even sure we have. So that's a very controversial proposal. I think that's why legislative leaders are kind of stepping back and saying, let's take a breath. Let's talk about this over the summer and come up with a comprehensive solution. The House has not put together their vision of a comprehensive road funding. We're not certain whether they plan to do that, but they have announced to their members that they will be having some caucuses throughout the summer, and they've asked them to come to the table having absolutely nothing as far as there are no items or projects or programs that are off the table. Everything's on the table for conversation. So we're kind of all over the place. You have a House plan, the Senate's being very quiet, and the governor simply wants more money towards roads. He would like $1 billion towards roads. So he's open to what the two chambers come up with, but he does want a solution to roads.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Adler.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Becky.
Morning.
Did I hear you say that we have a proposed 1.5% higher education
Correct.
cap and a 2.5% tuition increase cap?
1.5% increase to funding across the board to universities.
Okay.
However, in order to be eligible that, they have to limit their tuition increases to 2.8%. If they go above that, they are not eligible for that increased funding.
Yeah.
That's something that's been a consistent trigger for the legislature in order for universities to capture additional money.
Okay. Have they gone back and reread the language behind the mandate, the constitutional mandate that requires us to fund higher education funding? I always thought that entire program was in place to keep tuitions at a reasonable rate. And yet you see this is almost doubling what the cap is on the funding. It's counterproductive. And I cannot figure out why legislators are so blind to the fact that this money's being misused from its original intent. And as we're trying to fund our roads, we're spending, I think, $1.65 billion on higher ed. It seems like nobody knows where that money's going, and it's lost its way. So I'm not sure if anybody's paying attention. I am. It drives me crazy. But I just want to point that out. I don't get it. Thanks.
Commissioner Ponstein?
Thank you, Chair Schroll. I'll go back to roads. You had mentioned that the legislators put in $400 million, which would have been the same if the proposal would have passed. Now, if I read the proposal right, that first year of funding, very little went to roads, and it went to retrieving debt on past projects that haven't been paid for. Is there a breakdown on how that $400 million, is it going to go to roads, or are we going to be paying off past debts?
That's an excellent question. Right now, this is all a verbal conversation amongst legislative leaders. Their conversation is it's $400 million in general fund. But as they put together, absolutely, we'll be able to see the details and how they're doing that. And as they come together, I'll make sure I get that to you.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions for Becky this morning? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Becky, for your presentation this morning and also for your work on behalf of the county.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on the agenda is a performance measurement 5-minute update for Public Works. And we have with us this morning Department Director Darbas. I believe this is your first update as director. Can't wait to hear it.
Good morning, Commissioners. Again, my name's Darbas. I'm the Director of Public Works, I think for roughly 100 days or so, so I'm relatively new. I want to recognize Kim Williams as well. She's our Finance Director and is instrumental in pulling together a lot of the statistics and numbers that we work with from day to day. In 2014, our operating budget was $34.7 million. We're a department of approximately 55 employees. Our primary focus is energy recovery, waste diversion, disposal, recycling, and education. Our department is organized in 4 major areas. It's environmental compliance, which covers all of our operations, resource recovery and recycling, which is the Recycle Center, our Take Back Meds program, household hazardous waste, and education. Solid waste operations, which is our South Kent landfill and our North Kent transfer station, and our waste to energy operations, where we generate electricity from combusting municipal solid waste. Several items worth noting for 2014 is that we successfully implemented a comprehensive reorganization and leadership succession plan. As many of you are probably aware, 5 out of 5 directors retired out of the last 2 years, and during that time we went through an organizational restructure, and as I mentioned, I am the new director. Another item is that our waste energy facility generates 17 megawatts of electricity. In total, in 2014, we generated 101 million kilowatts, generating $8.9 million worth of electrical revenue that was sold to consumers' energy. Our waste energy facility located on Market generates enough power to serve East Grand Rapids and the City of Walker residents. From that plant, we also recovered 3,154 tons of ferrous material. In partnership with Granger, we also generate electricity at our South Kent landfill. That's through our methane gas to electrical generation. We generate 3.2 megawatts of electricity there as well. For 2014, we disposed of 328,213 tons of municipal solid waste at the South Kent landfill. Our total sales were actually up 27%, and that's really a reflection of the rebounding economy and the increased business activity in Kent County. North Kent Transfer also saw activity increase by 25% from a year ago. The West Michigan Take Back Meds program, that's a 5-county collaboration where we partner with 38 pharmacies and 12 area law enforcement agencies. We were able to collect just over 6,000 pounds of unwanted or expired medications. Keeps them from potentially being misused and keeps them out of the waste stream where they might impact water quality. Our Recycle Education Center, we processed 31,900 tons of recyclable materials. That's double of what was projected when the facility was first built where we thought we'd be in 2014. This is then our 5th year of operation. And we also transitioned into using the Goodwill Transitional Work Experience workforce, which has been a very positive influence on the facility. Each year we provide dozens and dozens of tours and have an opportunity to meet with and educate thousands of skilled children. We continue to partner closely with law enforcement across the region to provide secure destruction of drug seizures and evidence. The total special waste materials combusted from 64 agencies was just over 200,000 pounds in 2014. Over 3,600 households participated in our household hazardous waste collection program, and we were able to divert over 250,000 pounds of material that otherwise would have gone to the landfill that may have been corrosive, toxic, or in some way hazardous. We also collected 256 tons of end-of-life electronics, and we're able to recycle those. And then finally, we do continue to manage 3 closed landfills, the Sparta, Kentwood, and North Kent facilities. In 2014, the cost of managing these sites was $1.25 million. So that's just a quick overview. I know you've got the information in front of you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have for us.
Okay, thank you for that update, Dar. Questions for Dar this morning? Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Schroll. I'm fascinated on electronics recycling. How does that all work? Do we just take it in and then just send it out to people who purchase it, or are we anywhere involved in the dismantling of it?
Sure, we're only involved in the collection side of things. We actually contract with a company that then moves that material along and demanufactures and then brokers the commodities. So we're the first point of collection, and then we have a contractor that serves us.
So I'm assuming if there's a contract involved, that there is money to be made out of recycling?
There has been in the past. One of the challenges that we have right now is, in fact, the Department of Environmental Quality and the legislature will probably be looking at that, and that is the cathode ray tube style, the old style TVs and monitors, not flat screen so much, but have come to be a tremendous burden and a high cost of processing, which has kind of flipped the market upside down. If you were able to sweep that to the side, there would be net revenue to be gained, and in the past we've generated small amounts of revenue, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. This year we've had to put in place, with the approval of the Board of Public Works, a surcharge or a fee on the cost of CRTs, where we absorb a portion of that cost. The consumer that's dropping them off at our facilities pays a portion, but anything else is at no cost.
Thank you.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned the TVs. Would you just speak a little bit more on the recycling and the pressure that we're facing there, so that it's no surprise in the future to the board? Of
Yeah, the
what's going on
challenge
there?
with recycling overall, or the TVs in particular?
Right, no, the amount of volume that's coming in and the cost of product that we're selling.
Sure. There's been years of up and down in the recycling commodity markets, and I would say that we're definitely in a down period right now. The challenge that we have, of course, is cost of processing versus cost of revenue from the commodities. While it's nice to be able to go to the pump and pump gas at a lower price because oil prices are down, and that's a positive in many ways, the cost of oil also influences the value of recyclable commodities, particularly plastics. So we've got kind of a perfect storm right now where commodities are at a fairly low level, one being the cost of oil is down, good in many ways, not so good in some others. We've had some challenges of getting material out of the ports with the strikes and whatnot that have happened on the West Coast. The Chinese market actually has slowed some, and because they're not taking in as much material in the past, that depresses price. So we've got kind of this convergence of a perfect storm that has driven the value of commodities down, and we generate revenue from that. So what that means is that we are using fund reserves from the DPW to help support that recycling operation, and we're also exploring whether or not there should be a service fee, a tip fee, if you will, in the future to help kind of share that cost, and when times are good, possibly share a revenue as well. So that's something that the Board of Public Works and the DPW are working closely on, and we'll be talking about in the weeks to come to see what is the right mechanism, what's the right mix of supporting it from a public policy standpoint to make sure that we can continue to grow that, but also not incur a tremendous loss given the cost and value of commodities right now.
questions this morning? Commissioner Talon?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry to follow up some more on the TV thing, but I'm curious about the discussion that's had, the kind of debate between wanting to keep the old TVs out of landfill, which I think is probably pretty important, and the disincentive to bring them in and dispose of them properly by adding a fee to do that. And it seems to me it's like $25. It's fairly substantial to turn those in. So I know there's some board members here, but I'm curious about where we kind of come down, what the discussion has been about that balance, because it seems like a difficult one.
It has been a challenge in trying to provide that balance. The last thing we want is them thrown away in the back alleys or ditches or in a building or in someone's basement somewhere, and they sit there forever. What we recognize, though, is we can't absorb hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cost through the DPW. So what we've tried to do is share that expense, where if we could charge a little bit and we absorb a portion of it, our goal was to make it somewhat amenable to the residents when they come in to dispose of it. It's not unlike when you bring in an appliance that may have refrigerant in it. We do charge for that because there's a cost to remove that properly. The challenge with, of course, TVs and other monitors is that roughly 3 TVs equals the same amount of lead that you would find in a car battery. And so that's always been the environmental challenge. And it's a statement of value is whether or not you want to throw all of that material away. What we've had happen is Goodwill was a great partner with us, and they were funded through a manufacturer's program through Dell. And part of the challenge that we have at the state level is all the manufacturers pulled back. And when they pulled back their funding to provide this infrastructure, Goodwill had to step back from their program, which really began to push a lot of material toward us. They no longer accept TVs, and that was, I believe, 1.2 million pounds that they collected in 2014. And kind of as a default, the DPW kind of became that source of collection, and how you manage and how you kind of take care of the resident, yet charge them a little bit, yet make sure it's processed correctly. It's kind of a three-legged stool. We're trying to do our best with that. So we're not asking them to accept all of it or pay for all of it, but at least a portion of it.
And I guess just recognizing that in the city of Grand Rapids, there are, significant numbers of people who are having difficulty paying their rent or who are without health care, and they're just not going to have that kind of money. So, the worst case scenario is what's going to happen for a lot of people. So I guess want to make sure we're aware of that. It is going to create the worst case scenario by putting a surcharge on there. People will not be able to come up with the dollars to dispose of it properly. So, I recognize the difficulty. I also recognize that it's a system and that we need to find ways within the solid waste system to support all the costs of the system, but really wonder about that one. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good. Any other questions? Commissioner Bolter?
Hey, Derek. Couple quick questions. One, looking at your kind of your budget on page 2, what are other revenue sources and then other charges? What would, can you give me some examples of where we're getting that when it says other revenue 11%, basically 12%, and then other charges under adopted uses, what would that be?
Typically, we're generating revenues from the sale of ferrous metal materials. We're
Okay.
generating revenues from carbon credits that we get both from our landfill gas to energy program and our waste to energy program. We also generate electrical revenue, roughly $300,000 net from the operation of our landfill gas to electrical program with Granger. So there's a number of revenue sources that we have outside of just
Charges.
disposing
Okay.
of material. And there's some interest revenue that's generated too on cash on hand from our
Okay.
operations.
And then you had said, and maybe I wrote this down wrong, the recycling center has doubled the projection for usage, correct?
Yeah, we received nearly 32,000 ton in 2014 when the facility was first envisioned and the projections made on what would 2014 look like. They expected roughly half of that material to be coming in, so more in the line of 15,000, 16,000 tons. So we're more than double of where they thought they would be when it was first envisioned and built.
But you said we're using fund reserves to cover the cost of the recycling center?
Yeah,
Can you
we
kinda help me
generate
connect those dots?
revenue from the sale of commodities, be it plastics, newspaper,
Right.
paper, metals. But right now, the value of those commodities is less than the cost of operating the plant.
But we're getting double what we thought we were gonna take in, correct?
Correct, but when you're putting money with every ton, you know, it's still, every ton processed, we're still offsetting some of that value.
So are we subsidizing, is the rest of our solid waste operation subsidizing the recycling center then, pretty much?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Talon.
Thank you, Chair. Just, I didn't want to come off totally negative, and I guess I want to circle around and say, I so appreciate the work of the Public Works Department, and one of the things that strikes me is that, you know, we talk about dashboards and kind of quick views of information, and it feels like this is one of those places where a dashboard about how we're doing on extending the life of our landfill, on maximizing the amount that's recycled, someplace that a citizen or a commissioner can go and just see in a quick snapshot how we're doing compared to years past would be real helpful, because I think the department's doing pretty impressive and amazing work, and it'd be great for everybody to be able to see that and see how it's going.
Yeah, if I could comment to that, we recently took a resource recovery specialist position part-time and created a community relations coordinator position. And alongside that, the Board of Public Works approved us hiring a marketing agency so that we can better kind of tell our story and communicate all the good things that we do. Just a quick story, like the waste energy facility, we're in our 25th year of operation this year. We have extracted enough ferrous metal, steel if you will, from that plant to build the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier and 54 Calders. So that gives you some feel of some of the impact that we've had. There's more that we can do. But those are the type of stories and community and kind of connection that we're working on. And we'd like to think a year from now when we talk again that you'll be excited about what we've done.
Okay. Commissioner Bonk?
Yes, just responding to Jim, and the big players that we've talked to, and Dara's mentioned, have shuttered some of the recycling plants because it's no longer profitable for them to manage those, so they're stepping away from the business. And we at the same time have business that would be going out to the south landfill that's coming into recycling. Even though we're growing the business at the south landfill, we're losing, that's dollars lost as it comes into recycling. So there's the sort of the two-front storm that we're facing, and I'm talking to Dara about right at this time. And the TVs is the other issue, and since I've been on the board a dozen years, we never had a huge piece of electronics come in like the TVs have. And so we as a board, and Shannon, we're facing those issues and talking to Dara about it constantly and how we're gonna manage this and try to make it work. So it's difficult and it's not fun, and as you can see, as the things that come before this board as well too, from the DPW. A little contentious from time to time, so.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments for Dara this morning? All right, seeing none, thank you so much again for your update. We appreciate it and look forward to more good work coming out of the Department of Public Works. Okay, next up on the agenda, item number 5, performance measurement review from Friend of the Court. And with us this morning is the Friend of the Court, Terry Novakowski. Good morning,
Morning,
Terry.
Commissioners. I'm very pleased to present the Front of the Court performance measurements to you this morning. I can only hope that at the conclusion of my presentation that you and I are still pleased with what was presented. I'll follow the presentation overview that you see in front of you, discussing a bit of the alignment with the board priorities, key performance metrics, significant accomplishments, key collaborations, and a look ahead. This is how I believe that we're lining up with the vision that you've set for the mission of the county We have a consistent 66% funding that we receive from the federal government for our 4D services. In addition, we have 100% funding for our access and visitation grant. In addition to just an overall operational advantage of an efficient business process, we also have the motivation to receive incentive payments if we are more efficient. I believe that we contribute to the safety of the community by the use of our supervised parenting programs, which add an additional level of protection for families. Engaging with the public has a myriad of positives, and our community outreach is something that we're very fond of. We've been out to several functions in the community to bring the education of the front of the court, what our services are and what we can do to the community. In addition, we have a Citizens Advisory Committee that the citizens can participate in. Proactive and innovative government is interesting to us, because we're always looking at a different way to do business. We just recently worked on a grant with the State Office of Child Support and the University of Michigan to look at predictive modeling and how that can work in terms of child support enforcement. And then I believe under the high quality of life that we are one of the leading offices in the state of Michigan. And based on the fact that we are looked at as leaders in the field in terms of creativity and innovative strategies for case processing, I think this adds a level of comfort to the citizens in the county. One of our goals and metrics that we're going to take a look at today is our ability to deliver exceptional customer service. We've concentrated in this area since 2011, and at one time, some of you might remember, or some of you might have received phone calls from the constituents that the front of the court call wait time was up to 20 minutes in order to talk to an individual. We worked very hard to get that down to 10 minutes. We were thrilled that we cut it in half, but we understand that we also have a long way to go. 2 years ago, I set a metric for us to answer calls within a 5-minute wait time. And last year, we're pursuing a reduction of that into the 3-minute wait time. I believe that we're going to do very well in this area by year's end. And I believe that in the very near future, we're going to be answering the phone as it rings. In fact, I think we might be changing our performance measurements to the number of telephone rings versus a number of minutes that people are waiting. We don't just answer the phone and transfer the call. We answer the phone and we ask our representatives to be better trained and equipped to resolve the caller's needs rather than prolonging and making transfers. We also have emails that we respond to. We have additional walk-in requests for services. And even though there's a state central collection or disbursement unit where payments are made, we keep a payment window active in our lobby. Last year we collected $4 million on 115,000 transactions. So that's still a popular site for people to walk in and make payments for us, or make payments to us. You can see on this slide, slide 4, the percentages that we had set starting in 2012 and how we struggled. 2013, we did better. 2014, again, we reduced our performance down from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. And as you can see through April of 2015, we've pretty much met what we did our best in last year. So again, I think by year's end, this might be a significant year for us in terms of answering calls as they come in, if everything goes the way we're planning towards the end of the year. The numbers that you can see, we average about 105,000 calls per year. And in addition to that, that's a huge amount of volume. In addition to those calls, we have individuals that walk in, approximately 19,000 people. Remember, that's in addition to our 115,000 individual transactions at our payment window. The amount of correspondence that we receive, the mail, 93,000 individual pieces of mail that are sent to us asking us for services. And we've started our email process where we have an additional avenue for people to respond or request, and that is approximately 7,000. The second goal that we're going to take a look at is the ability to recommend child support orders that accurately reflect what an individual's ability to pay is. And for those who have a changed circumstance since their child support was entered, it's important to gather the facts and to make changes accordingly. It's also important to do this quickly because the longer that somebody is paying at a higher rate or the longer that a custodial parent needs an increase in payment creates problems down the road and additional stresses. So we ask that we complete all of our income reviews within 90 days. The statute provides that it can be done in 180 days, but that's way too long. So we said we should be able to do this in 90 days. In order to get those accomplished in that 90-day time period, I set an incentive that we wanted 70% of them completed within 60 days. In addition, when we complete an income review, it's important that we receive a payment after that review is completed. So we're charting the amount of payments that come in as a result of our reviews. In addition, if we have to increase activities, enforcement activities, such as setting it for hearings, we want to make sure that we're tracking payments that come in from those hearings, and we put a key performance of 55%. If the judge issues a warrant in the case, we feel it's important that a payment is received after the hearing is concluded, and we've set a performance on that. This last performance that you see is one that I've just added last year, and that's we want 44% of our cases with a current charge will be collected in that year. So that means if you have a current charge of child support of, say, $7,000 throughout the entire year, we want to make sure that that $7,000 is collected. And we wanted to do that on 44% of the cases. We're going to do that on 100% of the cases, but we have to have a starting point. So you can see on this next slide that we did struggle with our income review process. In 2013, we were struggling just to get the 90-day mark. We only got 41%. At the 60-day mark, we were doing a miserable 22%. We were transitioning. We put in some new business processes, some new techniques in order to more quickly process the income reviews. As you can see, in 2014, we started an improvement. We almost hit 100% on our 90 days, and we did well in our 60 days. But to tell you the truth, if you look at what we completed now through April, we've pretty much hit our mark, and we will definitely see that exceed. I'm predicting someplace in the 90 percentile. And the staff doesn't know this yet, and I don't want to scare them with anything, but I believe we're going to be doing these in 45 days. It's just the way this new process that we implemented is moving. The trend is there. We have all good indicators to say that we're being really efficient. We can get these income reviews completed, which is phenomenal in 45 days from where we were at one time. In addition, this slide also tells you the percentages in terms of the collections that we talked about after a review is done, and what we look like through April of this year at 98%. The next one is how many are paid within 60 days of a brand new order being entered. The next percentage is the amount remitting a payment within 60 days of that order to show cause hearing. Percentage of remitting a payment within 45 days after that warrant is dismissed. These are tough cases. These are cases that when you're show causing or when you have warrants, they're struggling with the ability to pay or running away from us. So we want to make sure that we continue to monitor that and that we find out what we can do to improve in terms of that collection. And then another thing that we track is our conditional suspension orders. We collect a lot of money placing somebody on a conditional order. As you'll see in the next slide, we talk about a lot of the numbers in terms of the result of what those percentages equate to. And conditional license suspension is a significant collection tool for us, and we're going to continue to work with that. We had to build a standalone system to assist the state child support collection system because they were inept at tracking conditional orders. And since we implemented that, the state has been interested in some of the things that we're doing here locally so they can adapt it to the state. Another goal that you're going to see is the completion of evaluations that the court sends us. The court will send over to us evaluations to conduct in terms of child placement for child custody or parenting time orders. The court has asked that we complete these within 90 days. In addition to doing the investigations, we're looking at reducing the amount of court time used in terms of processing parenting time complaints. We're trying to do more of those in-house rather than using court time, and we've been successful at doing that. The last goals that we're going to be looking at is how well do we implement orders in the state child support system? How quickly can we do that? The quicker we can do that, the quicker we can commence collection. And then when we do put orders into the court system and people have questions on whether or not they made a mistake, we want to make sure we have the capability of auditing those as quickly as possible. And we've set a performance of 45 days and then also have reduced that now down to 30 days to get an audit completed and back to them. Some of our significant accomplishments we already talked about basically is the improvement in our customer service, the reduction in our income review reports and recommendations, and the ability to provide facilitated parenting time. In a prosecutor's office, they'll set a order for support, but they usually refer the case to the front of the court to set up a parenting time order, and that's where we've now increased that use of facilitated parenting time. Key collaborators, we develop relationships with agencies that serve local neighborhoods, and we're also working with the Office of Child Support to influence them on the design of their state child support system. This is an interesting chart. I hope you get a minute to take a look at it. But this shows the significance of where we've been and where we're heading. The blue line indicates the amount of charges that equate in the amounts of child support charged, and then the red line shows the amounts of collections. And as you can see, this, to me, if you just a quick look, shows that we're definitely moving in the right direction. Our charges are coming more in line with what the ability of the obligors to pay is, and we're actually getting the collections on what the amounts ordered are. This is how we look compared to the state in terms of what they did in percentages of collections versus our county in terms of collection and how we compare. And then another thing we like to do is compare ourselves to other counties our size. So we took a look at 11 different counties to see how we compare in terms of our collection percentages. Our collections on arrearages, you can see, have consistently gone up over the years. And how that looks in terms of relationship to the other counties that we compare ourselves to. And this is also one of the federal performance factors, as is the collections on the current. So the better that we can do on these two factors, the additional performance income that we can bring back to the office. This is what our arrearages look like. A few years back, 2007, 2008, we had approximately $425 million on the books. We've now reduced that down to approximately $275 million. We still have a long ways to go in terms of clearing off the amount of child support that still needs to be collected, but we have a pretty good start on what we're doing. This is what we look like in terms of our cases and where we're heading. Our DM cases, these are divorce with minor children. these cases are reducing. We're showing that our DS, these are the family support action cases, are on an increase, as well as our DP cases, or our paternity action cases, are on an increase. This is just a stacked look at what that previous screen says and how the percentages are. This is who we are and the public that we're dealing with in terms of demographics. We show that we have an increase, there's a decrease in percentages of different nationalities, and there are increases in those same nationality or other nationalities represented on this page. The, again, stacked look for you sometimes is a clearer look. And basically, you know, in conclusion, I want to tell you that we're a large and complex institution that works very hard to minimize the negative impact for users as we strive to meet the needs of the court. The staff demonstrates professionalism in the most stressful of life situations that users can bring to them, and I believe that we respond to it in a remarkable way. That's the end of my presentation, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Terry. Any questions this morning? Commissioner Bolter?
I just have a quick comment. I mean, I'm kind of wondering if we have some guys with baseball bats running around to collect these arrearages. We did a great job, and I just think that's something that we should be really proud of, and I hope that the rest of the state looks at that, because I know that's always a tough thing, and
Thank
a
you.
rough.
I appreciate
yeah,
that.
that's awesome. So
We don't have any baseball bats. but
that's
thank
good.
you.
Good to know. Thank you.
Commissioner Steck?
Good morning. Thank you for your report. It is certainly important that the effectiveness of what you do continues to grow, and that's clearly the case, but it is equally important, I think, that the public have a positive experience, as positive as it can be in this environment, but a positive experience by way of responsiveness, and there's no question that that has increased and improved substantially. And I just want to acknowledge you for that incredible work in treating these citizens as clients.
Thank you.
That deserve and need to have immediate attention. So,
Thank you. We
acknowledge
believe
you
that's
for that.
really important.
A couple of questions. In the analysis, at what point is the arrearage assigned over to the state of Michigan for collection and out of your office?
When a person receives state assistance, that money is due back to the state of Michigan, but it's still our responsibility to do the collection. There is no point in time where we send this to the state and ask that the state do enforcement and collection on it. The state does have the capability of submitting names for the federal and the state tax offset, which they do. However, then that amount is just credited towards the amount that we still carry on our books in terms of collection.
Okay, so the numbers that you've captured here in your graphs are really all of the numbers. You haven't parsed out certain components of it that are enforced by other agencies.
I'm sorry, that
Are your numbers, do you parse out any of the numbers that are being collected
in
by
terms of
other?
the collection,
Pardon me?
no.
Oh, okay. And then the other question I was going to ask, with the new parental coordinator statute being adopted this past year, do you see that having an impact on what you do?
Positive impact. Again, if there's difficulties, we know how important it is for the absent parent to be involved in the minor child's life. The numbers are huge in terms of just even phone calls once a week and communication once a week. We also know the studies out of Genesee County at one time had showed that the sooner you involve the parties in the process, the better your outcomes are going to be, and the longer that the child support payment is going to be coming in. And all of that has to do and based on that connection with that minor child and involving and keeping that group of individuals communicating and understanding what is going on, understanding the needs. I think it's extremely important.
Do we have enough parental coordinators available to us?
I love that question. And let me say it this way, is that our staff is 98 members. We've not increased our staff. Our caseload continues to increase. We add about 2,600 cases a year. We probably are able, when we work hard, to close off probably 20 or 2,000 cases. So we're growing like 500-600 cases a year, but we're not growing in staff. We have a challenge that parent coordinating, sometimes child support is a black and white issue. The money's paid or the money isn't paid. We also know in parenting time that those are complex issues and can't be answered as easy as black and white questions. We need more, but we're restricted on what our budget can do. And the negative side is that non-40 services, which custody and parenting time are considered, have to be 100% funded by the county, and there are no grants for the feds to get that.
Does the department provide, because I know that there are some parental coordinators that aren't employees, they're just private providers.
We do referrals. Yeah, the court will send out referrals, to the different agencies that are available. Journeys is one of the agencies they use for the supervised parenting time. So yes, there are services, there are private agencies that are available.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Talent?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Terry, for the report and for your work. This, to me, is a good example of the old saying that what you measure will improve. We're seeing you measure a lot of things, and a lot of things, when you pay attention to those measures, tend to improve. So I really commend you for that. The one thing that I'm not singling you out. One thing I talk about with a lot of our departments is focusing those measurements also on the mission. And when I see the department mission is facilitating the resolution of domestic relations matters, there's a lot of measurements about that. But then there's kind of what I call the so what, so that children's best interests are protected. And when I think about that saying of what we measure we can improve, I wonder what the measure is or how we're measuring the protection of children's best interests. So I'm not sure whether that really is the mission, and maybe it is. And if it is, how do we know whether the interests of children are being protected and whether we're doing better at that? I looked through here and I can see, if we make some assumptions about if there's more money coming in, if there's more support being paid, then probably children's best interests are being protected. But I wonder if there's some other ways that we ought to be concretely measuring that. So just thoughts about that.
First
Do
of
you
all,
have any?
Commissioner, I appreciate your comments on tracking measurements that are difficult to look at sometimes on paper. We could probably find somewhere in our office measurements that would show us at 98 to 100% on a lot of the things that we do. However, that's not really going after what the core issues and the problems are. As you pointed out, it was important for us to track how many people are making their full child support payments throughout the year. That's why we set 44% on current collections. It's important for us to know, are we answering calls and returning those calls appropriately? Are we reviewing those orders appropriately and getting that time? The longer you stretch something out, the many problems and stresses that can occur in the meantime. But I've never looked at it in terms of the way you just presented the best interest of the minor child. We always assumed, we always thought anecdotally, we collect child support, they're going to be in a better position. We're able to answer phone calls and help parents that are calling in and pointing them in the direction, and they would get better services by listening to what we were saying and moving in those different directions. But to see whether or not, anecdotally, if that is truly happening to protect the best interests of the minor child, I guess you could look at, how many protective service complaints are being filed on our caseload size and determine But that would be an interesting metric, and I did write myself a note that I wonder how we can do this. And I'll go back and talk to the management staff. Maybe we will have some different measurements for you next year.
Something to think about. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning.
Morning.
You know, I was listening to Commissioner Steck. He asked quite a few of the same questions as I was taking notes here. And one of the things that I think is a common theme is that initial point of contact, especially with your office and maybe more so than any other department, is so critical to have someone on the other end of the line that can diffuse or at least take a call within a reasonable amount of time. I know your aspirations are to get it to where they answer every call that comes in immediately. That would be great. It might be really difficult to achieve. But the importance of that cannot be understated because people that you're dealing with are usually not in a great mood anyhow, and there's a lot of family dynamics involved, and to get into a loop where you're feeling like you're not getting service, and when you do finally get somebody on the phone, they're not particularly helpful or maybe even feeling your pain, so to speak. And I'm so glad to hear that you are making those efforts to change that dynamic, because people's perception of the county, perhaps, is the one person that answers the phone when they call here for whatever reason. It's when you go to the hospital. How was that first nurse that dealt with you or doctor? Were they having a bad night? Because you're going to think of that hospital as a terrible hospital based on that initial reaction. So I just wanted to applaud you for your efforts. I know it's going to be really difficult, and I wouldn't expect you to be able to answer every call that comes in. I think that might be, something that's unachievable, but and still be able to provide decent service to the people. So I just wanted to let you know I appreciate your efforts.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other questions or comments for Terry this morning? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for this very informative update. It looks like you're doing really good work, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is Commissioner Miscellaneous. Is there any miscellaneous this morning? Commissioner Vaughn.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment. A few years ago, we paid for the bonds at the Waste Energy, and we took that full value out of the tipping charge and went from $70-some down to $40-some. Now, when we did that, no bands came out, nobody gave me a high five or anybody on the board a high five. Conversely, if we had raised it $2, they'd be standing out the door. So, we got these costs that we didn't foresee, whether it be TVs or other things that come in. So we're fully transparent and managing that facility as best we can. And she would say the same thing, I'm sure. So just a little information, but that was a significant reduction in tipping fees down there at the waste energy plant, and that went back from Vern Hill, it was his baby, so that goes beyond my time.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Ponstein?
And along those same lines too, representing one of the core cities, I heard a lot of positive comments because it was people within those cities that paid that extra fee to pay that thing off. So you may not have heard it, but I heard a lot of people when that was reduced. It was appreciated. But my comments, we're legislative and human resources, and we hear these reports, and we get now a inkling that there might be a problem down the road with the recycling. And if you look at that plant, what the county has done to, one, build it, and to double the amount of volume is just outstanding, because the goal is to extend the life of landfills. I think we're doing that, and keeping some of this stuff out of the landfills, which is the most important thing. Now, we have companies in this country that sell these TVs and smartphones, and they convince the American public that you need a new smartphone every 6 months. You need a new TV every year. And those are very toxic and harmful end products when we're done using them. And most of those companies, if you search the three that I just cited, is that they're sitting on billions of dollars in cash. And they're completely still developing products that have a dangerous end life, and nothing's being done about it. I don't know if at the county level we're going to be able to solve that. I'm afraid that our solution will be is we're going to charge every resident more to solve a problem that really should be addressed at the point of sale. I mean, we do it with car batteries to ensure those batteries stay out of landfills. You get that core charge. you can look at numerous of bills that you pay that have recovery fees on it. But that's not a problem that we're gonna be able to solve here, but might be one that we can lobby at the state and national level to say, these are a problem, and they're getting to be a problem at our recycling facilities. And I think everyone would agree that recycling is good. But if there is a problem, I think this might need to be addressed, and might be an area that we can lobby for someone at a higher level to step in and say, yeah, maybe at the point of sale is where we should be addressing this. Because if you have a cell phone and you keep it like 10 years, like mine, I mean, but if you need a new cell phone every 6 months or a new laptop or whatever, if there's a cost and a end product that's dangerous, then yeah, there should be something at the front. And the companies right now are taking the easy way out. They're creating a dangerous product and they're profiting from it, and then when it comes to the end, they just wash their hands of it.
Okay. Commissioner Talon?
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to get Stan in trouble, but I would like to say that I agree with him.
On
My-
what part? So
on
I
this-
That's
on this-
Stan.
make a
on-
note.
Yeah, this Stan. I'm, the jury's still out. But my contacts in this industry suggest that there's a pretty significant lobby that is preventing that point of sale charge in order to recover these toxic products later on is being fought. And I think it makes sense for this body to have some discussion about whether we ought to throw our weight behind that and lobby our legislators. Because in my view also, that's probably the place where it ought to be addressed. When we buy that stuff, we pay for its disposal. So, thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Any other Commissioner miscellaneous this morning? Okay, seeing none, we'll call this meeting adjourned.